All right, guys, we're live, and I have Mr. Bryan Williams. I'm Mr. Bryan Wilson
How
here
you
with
doing,
me.
guys?
Is a self-pub author of The Forsaken Planet, and dude, let me get it in the camera here. The Forsaken Planet by Bryan Wilson. It's such a beautiful cover, and at first when I looked at it, I was like, "Why is it red?" Read the
I'm
book,
losing
guys.
you again.
Can you hear me? Exit out.
I'm losing you again.
Can you hear me, brother? Can you hear me?
Try sound real quick.
I'm talking.
You there?
Can you hear? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha. I don't
All
know if it's something
right.
going on Wi-Fi or what. Sorry about that.
Awesome. No, not at all. This is part of the technological age. So, if you lose me again, we'll just kind of deal with it. So, yeah, we've got Bryan Wilson here on The Forsaken Planet. He's a self-pub author.
I'm losing you again.
Maybe try to lose the ears.
Let me see if what's going
Can you hear me?
on. 1 second.
For those of you guys that are watching live, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys watching. Sometimes technical difficulties are a part of this. Kind of just got to deal with them as they go.
One second, sorry.
No problem. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, brother? Maybe try taking the Bluetooth out.
Oh man. See if it's any better on my computer.
We will be back shortly, folks. This is part of it. Absolutely part of it.
All right. Maybe
Can you
with
hear
my
me?
hopefully with my
All
Bluetooth
right.
off, that'll be a little
I
better.
think that
Sorry,
was
man.
probably an issue. No, dude, absolutely no problem. Listen, the amount of people that were watching at the beginning are watching right now. So we've got Bryan Wilson here. He is a self-pub
Hi again.
author. Yeah, absolutely. No problem, dude. So he is a self-pub author of a sci-fi fantasy book named The Forsaken Planet. And I will put that up in the screen again. It's always like I have to watch myself because it's like it's never what I think is in the screen, right? But if
Yeah.
you
Yep.
look, there's this red tint to the planet. That's what caught my eye first, okay, guys. And you soon, like it takes no time to find out why. So
Yeah, there's a little bit of a subtle meaning behind the two colors on the front, and I also wanted to dress it up a little bit more than than just the planet in the lettering.
yeah, so I love it, dude. It's absolutely captivating just looking at it. I love it. So and I'm not a sci-fi guy, so I like sci-fi. But if I look at a book cover and it's like immediately I notice that it's a sci-fi, I may not pick it up, but I don't know why. And I'm glad that this works for you. But as soon as I seen the rent set, I said this is different than just Earth. This is a story, and I can't wait to find out why it's read. So
Yeah.
maybe give us the blurb. A new word for me, right? As a reviewer, so give us the blurb. Your rendition of what your book's about that you would tell somebody who has no idea what it's about.
All right. Yeah, maybe I'll just start with the actual back cover blurb and maybe go a little more in depth from there.
Absolutely.
All right, but let's see. How's that? So the world is more than just a planet. It's an ancient tribute to the woman who guided it from ruin, a devastation she foresaw arising again. When mysterious aircraft wreak havoc across Earth's skies, it is revealed that there are clusters of other planets where humankind resides, distant worlds where the people wield the power of the stars themselves. It is an energy force that could bring about miracles or, as the alien fleet's ruthless leader displays, unleash horrors beyond imagination. After experiencing a loss during the onslaught, Colton Sampson, an ordinary college student, vows to protect his loved ones at any cost. But to learn the power to do so, he must enlist into the army of the Universal Throne, a second alien force with its own agenda. With the revelation of a secret prophecy foretelling humanity's demise and Colton's improbable role in preventing it, he embarks alongside a diverse group of friends to the throne's capital, the planet of Ventara. There he faces prejudice from supposed allies, lifelike combat simulations that test him to his core, and the looming threat of a universal war. Only by embracing his true potential can Colton hope to secure the safety he seeks in a universe that views him as nothing more than forsaken.
Man, it's so good. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's such a cool blurb. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I did it myself, and there was probably about 50 different variations of it, so I appreciate hearing that. But yeah, so the story overall, I like to view it as a 50-50 sci-fi fantasy genre blend. I kind of market it as science fantasy. It's the first installment of a planned series. I know it's a little bit unorthodox to not have the series name out with when you release the first book, but the Forsaken Planet was almost a 20-year project for me, so I felt a little pretentious putting out a series name until I at least had a manuscript for another book to add to it. And with that said, I'm pretty close to finish with the first draft of the second book. So I'm hoping once that's the case, I'll redo my cover and my Amazon information and stuff and have a series name out there for it.
Yeah, so that's something that I've noticed is a huge benefit as an independent publisher, you being the publisher, because say you're not exactly happy with the first. I talked to, her name is E.L. Lyons, and she's not happy with her cover, so she can rebrand herself, and she's not under this pressure. And I'm assuming that you feel the same. So when you come out,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's super exciting hearing that you're almost. So your first draft, you're almost done with the first draft. You said
of book 2, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So knowing that there may be a future cover that even if it's the same that says what your series is, that's an option for you, and you're not going to take any loss for that as far as fans. As far as I'm concerned, as a fan of yours already, that's going to be something that's going to be an additional thing that somebody loves about the first book and continuing to read the second book. What is sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was letting you speak. But just one more thing I would want to say on anyone interested in the book, anyone who wants to read it. So it is obviously the cover, the blurb are pretty sci-fi oriented, and but the prologue, when you first read the prologue, it's definitely a very heavy fantasy feel, and that I've had feedback on that, basically people being like they thought they were reading the wrong book when they first opened it up. But that's very intentional, just because it is a mix of both, and the beginning chapters are very much contemporary and sci-fi, and so I just didn't want people to be 60, 80 pages into the book when the fantasy elements get added and then be like, what the hell am I reading right now? So and I think I did it in a pretty good, natural and smooth transition into the story itself. But that's just a forewarning for like I said, anyone who wants to read it or opens it up in the future. It's this is a contemporary story that molds into a sci-fi story, which molds into a fantasy story, and once they're all there, it kind of all those aspects maintain being there. And there's other stuff too. There's, it's kind of an alternative history for Earth's ancient past and stuff like that thrown in. So it's there's a lot to the story, but I do think it mashes all together well.
So as far as world building, just from our previous talks, or me just seeing other information about the book, the second half kind of opens up into more world building, as far as like something you'd expect from a fantasy book. Yeah,
and I wouldn't even say. I mean, it gets into it pretty quickly, and it goes. It's definitely the second half of the book is more where you become in tuned with the more seeing as opposed to hearing about these other planets, and you definitely get more of the nature of fighting with. There's a power that is able to be wielded on these planets, and the second book gets much more heavily into that aspect of things.
That's awesome. So what is one of the tropes that you use in this novel? So we love tropes as fantasy aficionados, I guess, and even if they're used a lot, you know what I mean? There's nothing more comforting to me than, like, me personally, I love The Wheel of Time so far. I'm only 4 books in, but
you're on my favorite book.
Yeah, so you get this tavern feel, and it makes me feel all warm and cozy inside. So maybe give us one of the tropes that you use.
So yeah, I mean, my main trope would definitely be a chosen one prophecy, but that is very much intermixed with kind of the reluctant hero. I tried to put a spin on it. I tried to very much. I want a feel of my story to be, when you read specifically the main protagonist Colton, but also stories about him and his close-knit group of friends, and they are almost designed around. I started writing this when I was this age, so they're almost designed around me and my buddies at the time. And these are just normal, everyday people entering adulthood, but they're really just kids and still. And so I tried to add that as a spin, kind of on the whole chosen one thing, what that would be like for someone from our world to be thrust into this situation and really get the weight of not just our world, but multiple worlds thrown onto his shoulder. And then also, there's an addition to this of, we in our planet, we don't really, I mean, yes, I guess there's religions that believe in prophecy sort of and stuff, but not to the scale that they kind of do in this book. And so it leaves the characters also questioning, do we even believe in prophecies? Do we trust these people who are telling us these things? It's just a different, this stuff's been done before, but I tried to add elements that made it a slightly different spin to it. I think for me, when I kind of Harry Potter-esque, I guess, when I read that as a kid, what I loved about it was I felt like I could be Harry Potter. Like, it was just, he's a normal kid thrown into this magical world. And I remember when I read it for the first time, I'm thinking, why not? Who am I to say that's not really going on behind the scenes, And that's kind of, something I hope to get with my story. Space, we know very little about space as humans. And so, I hope people might sit down and read it and think to themselves, why not? Who am I to say it won't happen,
Exactly, dude. I love that, because it's like, even I remember reading Miss Cuvion was my 3rd grade teacher, and, reading Harry Potter, and it's like something that's so different yet so familiar at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that we're relating in what you're trying to say there. Gosh, that's such a cool feeling, because even if it's something as far as we don't really know if it's real or could happen, wouldn't it be so cool if it could?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the fantastic part about storytelling. I think that's all of us, when we love a book, we almost wish it was us in that book. Even the
Gosh.
ones that are crazy and morally gray characters that you'd never want to meet in real life. When you're reading it, you're like, oh, I wish I was the one sitting
Yeah,
there
it's
right
very enticing, So before we get back into your book, I always like to ask the question because as somebody who loves indie authors and representing indie authors, you guys work a 9 to 5 job,
now.
uh, so you've got this 9 to 5 job, and I know personally in your case that this is not something that isn't physical, man. So if you'd like to let us know what you do at daylight as, and we know already that you put so much effort into your passion. So what also do you do to add with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm first and foremost, I'm a loving husband. And a father of two beautiful children. They're absolute maniacs, but in all the good ways. They're great kids.
For sure.
My oldest, she's actually going through a phase now where she will just take her toys, sit in the room, says, "Get out of here," and I can listen in, and she's just creating a whole intricate story, like she's making up her own little fantasy world with them, and it's definitely reminiscent of myself when I was a kid. So I like to look at it and be like, little future writer right there.
That's so cool, man. I'm so happy for you that you get to hear that because I have my first daughter coming. I have 3 boys, but I have my first daughter coming. And especially thinking about her doing something reminiscent of what I'm interested in is just really cool. So I'm
Yeah,
super happy for you, man.
awesome. Thank you,
So
and
yeah, absolutely.
congratulations on your daughter on the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Of
October.
course.
So you're a family man. What else do you do?
Yeah, so for my day job, I actually own my own building business. I work with investors and other building partners in my area, and I basically go around trying to find properties. And once I do, I conceive up a house to put there, and I basically work the whole thing from that conception of the idea of it to going dealing with the politics of downtown and getting the permits and everything. All the way straight through closing day. I'm the one walking the house with the buyers and making sure they're happy and everything's okay. And I try to do as much work as possible myself as well and save money wherever I can. I've dabbled in the excavation aspect of things, waterproofing foundations. I've installed insulation on houses myself, hung lights, did miscellaneous stuff like installing the doorknobs. So yeah, definitely. When I got into the business, I went full force into it, and it did not leave a lot of time for writing. That is, as I said, this was a 20-year thing, and the big part of it was the business aspect. If I never got into construction, this thing might have been out 5-10 years ago. So, but my work it slowed down a little bit recently. You got economic stuff going on. You got local politics. They're changing codes and stuff left and right. And so things definitely slowed down. And when they did, I dove in. I said, now's the time. And I polished it. I went to work on it. I taught myself basically everything there is about self-marketing. I've always loved to read and write, but I did not at all know anything about like the book community, nothing about self-publishing, nothing. I didn't even know what a beta reader was a year ago. So, this was all stuff I kind of taught myself over like the last 6 months and just went full force at it. And now it's out there.
Honestly, because as me as a reviewer or somebody really I'm more enthusiastic about what I'm doing right now with you. I love to review books, but what I love too is to you're a human and you have a job, you have a 9 to 5, and still you make time for this passion of yours. And to me, that is it's awesome. And I look up to your job, dude, is absolutely something that I'm familiar with as far as the physical part of it. But what you do is very respectable, honorable, and I
Thank you.
think that a lot of people will feel the same way. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. You absolutely deserve it. You've got a family, you're doing the right thing, and I respect it.
I
So
appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. So amidst this incredibly busy life of yours, what inspired you to put that pen to paper?
So I've always just been a reader from a young age. I remember my seventh grade teacher assigned us The Hobbit, and I could still picture the book. It was the old black cover edition. It had the fat Bilbo on it and the bug-eyed Gollum creeping over his shoulder. And yeah, that was the first book that I just remember staying up way past the time I'd normally stay up and just reading it into the wee hours of the night. I think she gave it to us, whatever week she gave it to us that weekend. I went and killed it. And the next week I went up to her, and this was 25 years ago. So we didn't have the internet in our pockets on our phones back then. So you couldn't just go out and find out what books were out there like you can nowadays.
We're so spoiled, aren't we?
But we are big time. And but I remember I went up to her the next, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this was awesome! Is there anything else like this out there?" I had no idea about Lord of the Rings, and she just, she just smiled, and she was like, "Ah, funny you should say that." So, and then it just took off from there. I dove right into Lord of the Rings after that, and was just an avid reader. My parents were divorced when I was, well, they're divorced now, but they divorced when I was younger, and I used to go stay with at my dad's house, and he worked third shift. And so because of that, his schedule had him sleeping in a good chunk of the mornings when I was there. And during that time frame, as I got into reading, I remember I would just kill books on those mornings. And that went right into my teens. In high school, I read Ender's Game, and that was mostly fantasy at first, and then I read Ender's Game in high school, and that just brought me into the sci-fi realm. And
I literally just picked it up, and I think that you have a lot to do with that. Like, I wasn't interested in sci-fi, but sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read it in so long, but I loved it when I was a teenager, and definitely it had an impact on my my story. I market my story as Ender's Game, meets elements of fantasy. A more grown up Ender's Game, I would say, meets elements of fantasy. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. But
yeah.
But yeah, that eventually molded as I got into my later teens. That molded into the desire to want to write. I remember I would think about ideas in my head, stories in my head, scenes, and I would enjoy that just as much as I would reading the books. So I really wanted to write, but I was 16 back then. We didn't have the resources we do now, and I'm 37 now. I released my first book. It's being received pretty well, and I still have imposter syndrome probably every other day. So when you're when you're 16, you have that, you don't know what the heck you're doing. I just did not have the courage to even start writing, but I actually remember I read Aragon by Christopher Paolini, and I remember when I read it. However, I found out that he was about the same age as me when he published the book way back when, and that just kind of lit the fire under my butt. I was kind of like, well, if this person can do it, I could do it. Obviously, I'm not comparing. He's a very established author for a long time now, but I'm just the type that I see someone else doing something, it makes me want to do it. So,
no, that's respectable. And you know what? At the end of the day, we're all human. And
yeah,
it's something I talk about a lot with authors, especially the younger ones that I'm so impressed with. I just talked to Emma L. Adams, and she's very young. And her ambition to take up such a big task, because anybody that's familiar with the systematic parts of writing, you've got the editing, you've got the proofreading, you've got the cover art, you've got so many intricate parts of this process that the faint of heart isn't something that you can have and do what you're doing. So absolutely.
no, I agree. All the props to them. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of 19-year-olds. I follow a lot of people on social media, still kids to me. They're going off to college and they're writing their books. They're doing the marketing thing. And yeah, I think the same. I mean, all the power to you. I was such an immature idiot really at that age. So I see these kids doing this, and the courage they have to do it is really cool. And I wish them all the best. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of younger authors coming up over the next decade or so that have some really cool written stuff coming out.
Yeah, our generation, because we're around the similar age. I'm 33 this year, and we kind of like grew up half of our school career without the internet, and then the second half kind of dabbled in it, not even close to what it is now. But we're learning, and we're taking something we didn't grow up with and try to utilize it as something to benefit us, especially as an author. Excuse me.
You're good.
So we know that Tolkien obviously is probably your number one since you've talked about him already. What are two other authors or just books by themselves that inspired you to take the leap into doing self-publishing or just writing?
So yeah, as you said, Tolkien's definitely the one of them. But for two others, I would say, as I discussed, probably the whole Aragon, Christopher Polini thing. He just like I said, that kind of, when I read that book, that gave me the fire to really want to keep going with it. Of course, that was a long time ago, and other things came down got in the way of, getting into the building business. I originally went to school for math. I got my bachelor's and master's in mathematics. So I was
Wow.
really burned out at that point afterwards. And that's when I failed. I went for the actuarial exam. I tried to get into that, failed it horribly. And I was so burnt out that I got into to construction, and it took off from there. But there was gaps of working on it, not working on it, and that's what made it take so long. And then of course I got married and stuff later on, and we've had some family, not so great family things occur in the past. So, but
you're a human, man. I get it. I get it, and even more, I think we can relate, and other people can relate to that. So yeah, sorry for interrupting, but
yeah, no problem. But yeah, definitely him for kind of giving me that fire as a kid to even start the thing. And then I'd say the other one is probably Pierce Brown. I love the Red Rising series. It's one of my top 5 series, probably more like top 3 even, actually. And I actually remember when I was going through a phase of not reading and writing for a while. In my later 20s, I picked up Red Rising. It was when I first read it, and I kind of awesome book.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm so happy that you brought that up.
You will not be disappointed reading that.
I hear so, right?
Yeah. And I kind of am someone who I pride myself on the fact that it's not easy for authors to get their surprises, their twists, their shock values past me. And this one definitely did. And that really just that was another thing that kind of, when I went through a big slump of not touching my story, gave me a kick in the rear to I said, I want to be able to do this. I really want to try and create that same type of thing. So I'd say he's definitely the other one.
So I like to ask this question. I like to ask a lot of the same questions, but that's not for the reason of being an easy thing. It's because me personally, as somebody who interviews people, there's some key questions that I have that really tell us who you are. And if you were to sit down and have a beer with any author, somebody that you just really, not somebody, see, I have a fanboy issue. Like Joe Abercrombie, I don't know if I could have a real conversation with him because I'd be like, dude, you're right in front of me. But somebody you could sit down and be like, what do you do? Why do you do it? And give me some wisdom. Who would that be for you?
Oh, I mean, I think it would be who I just said, Pierce Brown, because he's as someone who's writing a sci-fi book, he's probably my favorite modern author that's out there today. I would I don't want people to think my story is like his. There's very different feels and themes to them, but there are some minor similarities, and because of that, I would just love to pick his brain on the craft, kind of hear his story of leading to his experience, and how he does it. That would be really cool for me.
I've seen a couple interviews with him, and he seems like a really likable guy. And so yeah, I've really honestly heard the same exact thing from him. Like, yeah, I read a lot of fantasy, I read a lot of sci-fi, but when it comes to Pierce Brown, this guy's different. And it just further gives me that inspiration to start this quicker. I just moved up higher on my TBR. I'll always read indie before I read a published author, not because I don't think they work hard or have the same amount of aspirations or ambition. It's just where my heart is personally. And really, if somebody asks,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm in the same boat. I mean, as much as I love the Red Rising series, I still haven't read Lightbringer because since I got into this whole book community world thing, I'm the same. I'm just buying indie stuff and I'm reading indie stuff and I'm finding I'm loving it. So I want to, I obviously understand the hard work that goes into it. So I'm trying to do my best to do my part to give back to the community as well, to the point that I'm not reading the next novel of one of and it's not like I'm not trying to make myself sound great. I haven't really had the desire to, because I've just been very much enjoying the indie reads I've been doing.
Have you been just as surprised as I have? As there's some indie books that I understand why they're indie, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that in the most direct way you can take it. But there's some that I open and I'm just like, oh my gosh, whoever doesn't pick this person up is
there's
like,
I've read some you never tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of
that's
them.
that's the beauty of self-publishing. I know it gets the bad stigma because there is from what I read and hear, there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but there's so many also out there that are just great, and it definitely deserves to have some more awareness brought onto it.
Absolutely. And like I said, that's where my heart is. And when I first started my channel, that wasn't an obvious thing. So in the last few interviews, I've tried to make that more obvious. So I apologize if I reiterate that. I want people to know what I'm here for. And what we're doing right now is why I'm here. I see you guys work these 9-to-5 jobs. You have families, you have kids, you've got wives, you've got really interesting lives, but you still pursue that passion at a rate that it astounds me that you have any free time to do such. So it's something that inspires me, and I don't plan on ever stopping. I love it.
I appreciate that, and don't sell yourself short. I mean, I know this stuff. Believe me, I've tried creating content and stuff, and I could go write probably 20,000 words in the time it takes me to think up some sort of video to make or to create for something. So I very much respect what you're doing as well.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'll always keep that close to my heart. Really, honestly, will. Maybe we've covered it. Maybe give a little variation. I like to ask this question too. So, like, if I was to die in about a month, what would you say? God forbid, right? What book would you be like, dude, you have to read this because when you're on your way up, you'll remember this book?
Well, first off, let's cheers and hope that doesn't happen.
Amen.
But yeah, I mean, this is such a tough question because
it is.
Obviously it all depends on what a person's favorite genre is, and even with that said, then it also depends on one stage in life, I think. And I wish I could come out here and give you some niche book that anyone watching might run out and go look at and be like, whoa, it's cool, I never heard of it. But I just would be I wouldn't be doing it justice if I didn't say what we already talked about, The Hobbit. Just because that was my book that got me into books. I mean, I don't know if I don't read that book, I don't know what happens. I don't know how different my literary future holds. And in saying that, listen, it was 25 years ago I read that. I don't know why I haven't reread it. I've reread a ton of books. I think maybe it's probably because I'm afraid if I reread it now, it's going to change that perception of it for me. But yeah, how could that not be my recommendation when it just altered my world so much?
It really is the answer that I'm looking for, what you just said, because I don't care if I get The Hobbit 1,000 times when I ask that question, because it's pure, it's in the moment, and it's what influenced you. And that's literally what I'm going after. People are like, should I give this answer? It's like, please don't ask me. Be like, please give me what influenced you in the time that you read it and when you found it most useful for you. And if I get the same exact answer every single time, there's a reason for that. So yeah,
that's just the realest answer, I guess you would say, from me.
Absolutely. Are there any I know me and my wife are watching The Rings of Power right now, and I know there's like probably every booktuber that I've watched or anybody who's really open to giving their opinion of it is like, it's not good. I'm so sorry. I absolutely am enjoying the shit out of Rings of Power. Is there anything you're watching right now that you would say the same thing about?
Well, to just touch base on that, I watched Rings of Power. I didn't hate it. I wasn't blown away by it. I liked it much more than my favorite series is Wheel of Time. And God, I don't want to say I despise that. That's a strong word, but I was very close to despising that.
Oh
I'm,
man.
I'm holding on hope that they get a little more on track and do better in
Now,
season 2. But
now for reference, you've read all what 14 books?
oh yeah, I've reread the full series. I've reread through 2 times, and the front half I've reread through 3 times. I started
So
it way
you're
back
pretty
when.
qualified to give me a opinion on this because listen, I'm loving it, but I've only read the first 4 books, so I kind of know what to expect in these first couple seasons. But
Yeah.
I have to really pick up on reading. It's funny, I got a 30th anniversary edition of the Eye of the World, and I dropped it like right when I started my channel, and the back
Okay.
cover ripped off, dude. So I've got one
Oh,
coming in September by gosh, I wish I could. I feel so stupid, but it's a special. It's like the Broken Binding. It's not the Broken Binding, but it's a very similar company, and they're sending me a special edition of it just because I loved it so much. And what I think the Wheel of Time, as far as the adaptation goes, that Prime is doing, you start this book, and the Two Rivers is this to me. You're running through this field of just beautiful,
yeah.
and it's really dark, dude. The series, it starts out really dark. It doesn't really touch on why they're taking off from the Two Rivers.
Yeah, listen, I completely understand when you go from book to film adaptation, you got to make changes, you got to alter a lot of things, but it just I feel like I've watched another the changes in this just weren't necessary, and it was really as someone, I'm no TV writer. I don't want to sit here and say I'm some sort of writing pro, but just the writing itself just seemed very sloppy all over the place. They'd be in one city one minute, a different city the next. I felt like they never gave the viewers who maybe haven't read the book any explanation of it or
Yeah,
anything.
when
It was,
Matt gets the dagger, it's very clear to me as somebody who's read the book why darkness follows him, and I don't think that the
yeah,
adaptation really gives a good reason why it follows him.
yeah. I remember the trailer that came out. They showed him holding the dagger, and I was pumped. I was like, Matt is
Yes.
he's my favorite character of the series. So I was just like, yes. And but then I watched it, and it just I liked the first couple episodes. They were pretty good, and then it went all downhill from there for me. I don't know. I couldn't like it enough. I felt like they never even. I feel like if you didn't read the books, do you even understand what's going on with Perrin right now? It's like I
Yes,
wouldn't.
yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if next season they're having him go up to a tree and lift his leg to pee, and that's how they're going to explain he's becoming a wolf because they just
Right.
I don't know. Didn't make sense
No,
to me.
no, I totally get it, man. Gosh, so I follow you personally on Twitter, on Instagram, and
Mhm.
recently just found out you've got your own official website. Is there anything I'm missing?
No, I have. Well, first, I should probably say, just to give, if anyone does look up a little background. So, before this past April is when I created all my socials because before that, I had personal ones, but I like never used social media. I don't know, it was never
You
my
ain't got
thing.
time, brother.
That was part of it. But so I'm definitely becoming more acquainted with it. And my biggest one is definitely Instagram. My handle's at brian.wilson.author. And that's only because that's what I used a little bit beforehand. Um, I am on Twitter at bwilsonauthor. I'm trying to get more acquainted with Twitter. Twitter was the one when I tried to get into it back in April, and that was the one that seemed least user friendly to me. It seemed like the biggest uphill battle. But
So
I'm
just as somebody, and I'm sorry to interject, but I want to make sure you know
no,
this because sorry. So when I got involved with the reviewing, I did a Twitter, I did an Instagram, I did a Facebook group. I think that any reviewer, I think that any author, any writer, period, of short stories, novels, you are absolutely missing out if you don't join the Twitter community, because I have it's just such a refreshing thing to me. It's such a beautiful community on Twitter. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think you're right that it's not as user friendly as we would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But gosh, overwhelmingly, if somebody was to say, where should an author go? Where should a reviewer, writer, whatever? Twitter, absolutely. And I think it's
Yeah. And
because you write words, and Twitter is just a social network for words. And real
yeah,
quick before I forget, it's time. So I wanted to make sure that this comment got the light it deserved. It's likely that thinking about the answer to the question is way more important than the answer itself. That's why, or that's the way a lot of things are, though. Haha. That's Lantern Valley. He left that, and I think that's a really good philosophical, thought-provoking comment. So I wanted to put that out there. But yes, Twitter.
cool.
Yeah. So Twitter,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
and
it's the place to be.
I'm realizing that I'm definitely realizing I'm seeing that, especially a lot more of the more popular indie authors, and then even all like, the bloggers, any book people. I realize really quickly it's Twitter, because they all on Twitter, everyone's got thousands of followers, whereas on the other ones there might just be a few hundred and stuff like that. So I'm definitely trying to get acquainted with it, get my foot in the door on Twitter, and I'm hoping to post a little more on there from here on
Yeah,
out.
I think something along the lines of just once a week, if you find the time. For me, that's what I kind of do. Like, say I'm close to 400 or 500 subscribers. It's something that I would do to post on Twitter, because the community is so supportive. That's kind of what I'm trying to say here.
Hmm.
Um, Very supportive community, and just knowing you the way that I do, I consider you a friend. I would feel I'm letting you down if I don't tell you that. So
Yeah, no, like I said, I definitely plan to on all the social medias. I know it's obviously a big part of marketing, is a huge part of self-publishing. Obviously, that's the one thing I've been trying to get going with myself, and I think I've come a pretty good long way since April, when I had like 5 followers on each one. So we're getting
we
there.
all,
It's a
yeah, we all start somewhere, and I think that if we accept that and just continue forward, I think that that's a beautiful thing. So as far
I
as my, go
Well,
ahead.
I just wanted to say too, if anyone was interested, I do have my website too. It's www.bryanwilsonauthor.com. You can get any of my marketing stuff there. You can see a little bit more about my book. It's got all reviews. It's got a little trailer I made. To me, I'm proud of it, because without any
It's incredible.
background in digital anything, I think it's pretty good. Some others might think it's a little corny, but I guess we'll see.
So
But
commenting, and
there's
just real quick, I'm so sorry,
yeah,
but when
no,
you
no
sent
worries.
me your when you sent me your book, you said that about your bookmark, and it's incredible. My wife's a graphic designer, and she was impressed by it. So I think you're
Oh,
selling
oh,
yourself
thank you.
short, man. So anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen some of the other indies out there. They post, I'm like, damn, that's good. But we probably all feel that way. So, but yeah, no, with my website too, I have a newsletter sign up on there. To be honest, I haven't even put a newsletter out there yet. I have not pushed it at all. That's kind of the one thing too many for me, I feel like. But I do know that's probably not smart marketing. I think newsletters are pretty important for most indie authors. So I'm definitely going to try and get going more on that. Especially if people sign up for it, that'll give me a little bit of a kick to do that as well. But then also there's a section on the website that you can contact me. Anyone with questions, anyone, especially if you've read my book, I'd love to hear from you. I love to hear your thoughts. I think one of my favorite things that's happened since I've self-published is the few people that have reached out and asked me when's book 2 coming out, let me know they liked it. There's been no better feeling than the strangers that I've had some 5-star ratings or reviews from across the world, India, Germany, Australia. And that's just been really, really cool to see that, because it's not just me liking my story. Obviously, people from all different cultures and countries are liking it as well. So that was definitely one of the more surreal things that happened for me so far.
Yeah. So what you're doing as an author, in my opinion, this is the reason I do this, is you're adding to our imagination. And you know what? After you're a kid, as a man especially, and we find ourselves maybe lacking in that area. And I think that if we keep ourselves young in that area, it can only be good.
Yeah.
For me especially, long story short, I found myself in a situation to where I couldn't physically go on adventures, so my mind took me instead. And I think that as somebody that creates the way that you do, you're inspiring so many more people than reach out to you. Um, I think it's an incredible thing, and it's why I do what I do. So, as far as my questions goes, I've asked all the questions that I want to ask. I would love to know anything else you want to highlight, anything else you want to tell the people, where to go, what to do, anything at all, man.
Um, the only The only thing I would say is, for anyone interested, I told my story of taking 20 years to write my first book. I don't want that to throw anyone off and be like, oh, God, he's not going to get the next one out for he'll be 70. But no, I'm 95% done with the first draft of book 2. And I did that in about 2.5 months. So I'm definitely moving much more quicker. I'm trying to put a focus on definitely releasing sometime in 2024. Ideally, I'd like to release it in June, so it's a year apart from all my from my 2 book releases. If not earlier, I'd love to have it earlier if I can. And I think I'm definitely on pace for June at this point. I do have some possible things coming down the pipeline for construction, so that might put a little bit of a damper on things, but it's definitely going to be a priority to keep moving forward. And with the pace I'm on now, I'm hoping to be looking for beta readers sometime later this fall. So if anyone's interested in that regard, please feel free to reach out to me, especially if you've read my first book or if you're someone who might read it between now and in the next couple months or something. Please reach out to me, because beta readers make or break a story sometimes. So that's what I've learned over the past few months.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and it's become more apparent, and just another way of inspiring me to continue doing what I'm doing. Because, like I said, the reason you're here is because I love what you're doing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then obviously anyone too who reads my story, please leave a review. Those are so essential for us
They
indie
are
authors.
so hard to get as an author, and I want to say that.
Very hard. I mean, when I first was, reaching out to the book community, I actually had quite a few bookstagrammers who accepted my story. This was before there were any reviews, before it was even published. They were very gracious and kind, and took my story on. And if any of you are watching right now, I really appreciate that. But going out to the booktube world or the blogger world, I didn't get very much of a reception, a lot of no answers, and that's not a knock on any of that. I understand a lot of you guys are doing this in your free time as well. You can only read so many books, so don't take that as a knock at you as well. But I just bring that up because so when I first published my book, I put it up for a free book promotion and a free ebook promotion, and I ran that with a couple ads I stacked a couple ads on book discount sites, and I had just about 3,000 copies downloaded, and that helped me get some early reviews, and I bring all this up because I definitely noticed once I had those reviews under my book's landing page, that was when I started to get a little more of a warmer reception from some people. And again, that's not a knock on them. I completely understand it, but it just goes to show how important reviews are to people.
Yeah, and I also want to reiterate, just because I haven't put a review out for your book doesn't mean I'm not going to once it's finished.
I always want honest reviews. Everyone's got to finish the book before they
exactly
they do it.
And as something that I've struggled with personally is having a family, as you know, is very taxing. And then finding time to read. Me and my wife, we have a special time at night where reading gets done, but it's not as much as I would do if I didn't have kids, obviously. So
without a doubt. I mean, I'm lucky to get an hour and a half at night to read. I used to read 8 hours in a day when I was younger. So it's once you have kids, it's very difficult.
Yeah, especially young kids, and you get that. But what I'm saying is, I want anybody that is watching this, there will be a review for this book, as most of my interviews. Just because it's not finished when I interview somebody, this is for the person I'm interviewing. Anybody confused about that, I want them to understand that this is to get more books in hands. This is to get your name out there. So, and I choose to represent authors that I look up to. So if I interview somebody, you can bet your bottom dollar that I look up to you and what you're doing in your life, your personal life, and just good humans. I like to represent good humans.
You're a good dude, man. I appreciate it. Just even especially appreciate you having me on, especially that mashup video you did for some of us indies. You know, there were a lot of other indies in that are a lot more I guess I would say more of a following, a little more established than I am. So it was my honor and a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah, everybody that I had in that video, even the biggest one would be somebody that would take any indie author under their wing. Just absolutely great people who I've met through this community. So mostly through the Twitter community. But yeah, I've absolutely enjoyed considering you a friend. I love hearing about what you're doing. I love the fact that you agreed to come on here and chat with me. And
I appreciate you having me. It's my pleasure.
And yeah, absolutely. I will absolutely keep in touch with you. Anything that you drop as far as dates, cover art, future books, I will be your man amongst a bunch of others, I hope. And I just want to thank you for being on here because you're a treasured person, and I want you to know that.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, thanks for having me. I appreciate you reading my book. I mean, that's the main thing. That's you accepted my request, and it really means a lot.
Oh, thank you so much, and it means a lot that you're on my channel, man. So, listen, guys, please tune in, watch this, and stay creative, stay inspired. Find your niche, find your inspiration in what you love in life, guys. This is Beard of Darkness Book Reviews, and I'm sure this won't be the first interview or the last interview with Mr. Bryan Wilson.
I definitely hope so. There's more.
Thank you for being on so much, man.
Yeah, everyone have a good night. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, sir. You too.
Bye.